Welcome back. All right, let's get into our character and rendering this fella out. So, a couple differences from the AI generated images that I started off with in the beginning. I really like this fella's outfit over here on the side. So I want to try to incorporate that into my character. And this is all about like working the character in and making him come to life. So when I'm doing this, I think that the main focus that a lot of beginning students all have is to jump right in and get started on the character's face, and then the hair, and then the other features on the character become completely secondary, like the cloth and the clothing. But this is not the way. Okay. What you want to try and do here is if you have a full body character, develop that character's entire full body at the same time. So, in the same way that you saw me work on the dinosaurs really loose and really far out, I'm going to start with this character in the same way. So, the first thing that I'm going to do here is I've got my character line, and I'm going to turn down the opacity even further on those lines to where they are barely visible. The next thing that I want to do is start sampling some of my colors, and I'm going to start building in the lighting on this character. The reason for this is, there we go. Um, I've got his skin on a separate layer. I could combine everything, but let's keep it separate for now. Um, yeah, and I'm going to create my new layer to be able to start working on. Got a sword on his own layer, skin tone is on a separate layer. And what I want to be able to do with this initial lighting pass is go in and start learning about how the lighting is working on this fellow. One more thing to be able to help me, I have cut out this dude over here on the side. So, oops, this guy right here is going to help guide me through the character's face. Now, the character's face, this comes off looking like a 3D render. And this, we could certainly paint it this detailed. It's got some problems when we get a little bit closer in there. The mouth isn't quite working as well as it could. There's some things that we can do better than the AI certainly did, but it's given us some good indications about the overall lighting, especially around the eyes, the brow, the just above the eyelid right here. What's going on? We've got the planes that are starting to show up on the character's face, but yeah, I think we can outshine this AI rendering once we actually get to that section. But for now, let's go in. I'm gonna hold down Control, select, holding down the control button, left clicking on my icon over here to be able to get the region selected character. Now, what's neat about this is giving us some indication of the lighting. This guy is giving us indications of what the material is with the way that the light is hitting him from the front over here. But when we look at our piece, this character is just starting to step out of the light and into the shadow. So the way that I can treat this, I can either push my light layer up a little bit more, or I can say that the light is going to be hitting him through this region on his body. And as the leg starts to move forward, he's not going to be at, this is stepping into the shadow here, right? So I kind of want him sort of leaning back, and the light's going to be up in this region of the character, which is going to make him nice and bright and really give us some good highlights. Even though he's wearing the mask, we can even get a bright highlight going on his chin here. His head is sort of kicked back a little bit, since we can see the underside of his hat, and it should work pretty well. So this color that I'm using should be a very dark teal, just like the rest of the colors that I'm using within my painting. And now I'm going to go in and I am going to grab one of my highlights from this character. When we look at the highlight here, it's it's a little bit more blue than I would prefer it to be. I want to keep it in that sort of teal realm. And on my new layer, I want to go in and I want to start just making some decisions, right? That's part of this, is going in and getting that paint done. It looks so cool with it all in black, but we're going to go in and we're going to start highlighting and painting some of the shadows since I can't get much darker. Sorry, we're painting the highlights since I cannot get much darker than what we've got going on here. So this character's got a nice high collar. You can still see that there's some highlights going on within that. We've got his hat on him, but I want to pretend that there's still some highlights that are going on within this fellow. So let's go in and let's say, I turn my brush down to like 36%, so I can build these up slowly as I'm thinking through them. All right, so we've got that ambient occlusion that I'm trying to paint down and around into. Same thing on this collar. Still want a little bit of a rim light going along the edge of it. Ambient occlusion. We've got some cool wrinkles that are going on in that big oversized collar on this character, so I want to make sure that I highlight and respect those. And I'm building up my brush marks. So the collar is a good spot for me to be able to start because we've got sort of those deeper colors. You can see the way that I'm sort of pushing the values back into the character's neck. Drop it back a little bit more so they're not completely even. And now we've got the shoulders to go through and do. So the shoulders are going to be receiving a whole bunch of the light on this character. It looks like I've got another tone that I can go even brighter with some of these highlights. But I'm thinking about where the ridges are on this character's jacket, as well as some of those deeper points. So again, I said I wanted the light really kind of going across his entire body up here at the top. It could be wrapping around since it's coming from the backside, but I don't want it to get too far into the middle. I kind of want to leave that a little bit shaded. Let's imagine that some of that bounce light is hitting from the back and coming on through. I'm going to make this a nice bright highlight here along the edge of his jacket. And we're still thinking in planes, right? So that's my first pass. Wrap this stuff around. Oh, man. All righty, there we go. And now we've got the other shoulder to go in and do. And I'm working just really quick, really loose through this guy, but not with a fuzzy brush. I'm using a textured brush. I'm painting shapes. I'm really trying to think about the attunement of the shapes. This hand is coming forward just a little bit more. So towards the end, I don't want these highlights to be quite as bright, but they still need to be there a little bit. It's going to be brighter actually on the bottom side because we got more bounce lighting that's coming off the ground. And that's going to help to define our form and our shape. We can also put quite a bit of lighting going up through here, but not all the way. Right up into the armpits. All right. And so we're going to have it dissipate around this region. Now through the top of the character's chest or at the top of his shoulders. Let's go in and get some of those bright highlights going on. There we go. That's where the light's going to really pool and hit right on that little corner right there. It's going to look nice. Let's give some more little smaller highlights through here. I can probably turn down my brush even more here in just a second. But you can see how we're getting this nice color going all the way through, and then I've still got room for even brighter highlights. This is neat. He's got this big collar that's going across. So I want to make sure that the edge of that collar is really catching the light. And then as we get further down it, and towards the center of the jacket, that lighting is going to dissipate. I'm going to leave a little bit of a ridge here as if there's some thickness to it. There we go. And again, just trying to make sort of an even color on this piece and giving it just a little bit of wrinkle. All right, that's going to be the last of the highlights on that section. We've got some, well, right under here, just a little bit, just to show the depth of the collar. We do have a bright point that we're creating, so let's get that terminated in a successful way. That's all looking nice. Let's go in and here on this side, I don't really have any other pockets going on with the character moving through his arms and his jacket. We are going to get into the character's face. I absolutely promise we'll do that. But for now, this has very quickly become a cloth rendering demo. Thanks for bearing with me and rolling with this. All right. Sometimes that creative process, man, you just gotta with it. All right, so you can see within this is the first time we're really looking at my reference image. I really love on the AI image over here on the side, the way that the light is sort of pooling around the edge of the hat. We've got it super bright up on top, which looks great. And then we've got that divot as well that's going on. So I don't want to forget about that. We've got a lot of light that's hitting the top of the hat. So let's just go ahead and highlight all that stuff. And this base layer that I'm doing with the lighting should have a rim light going around there. But just a little bit of it right around the edges of the hat too. And then we got that bounce lighting, right? That's coming up off the ground and hitting the underside, but then dissipating as it moves forward. Always thinking about that bounce lighting, especially coming off the cement. This guy over here. So we've got a big chest plane that's catching a lot of the light. Even though our light's a little bit different, I want to go in and I want to highlight the character's chest here. It's all looking really nice. Give it some divots. Again, we want to let it fade down into the into the interior chest where the light isn't able to hit quite as well. With the chest muscles, it's going to not have nearly as much of a highlight right up underneath here, but we still have got all that bounce lighting that we can play with right around the edge of the character. They're doing a little bit of this on this guy, but we're accentuating it even more. Pull some of that over, maybe just a little bit of it here just to be able to give some indication. It's not exactly true to form how light would really work, but it just looks better for painting. All right, so for this part, let's go in and let's pretend that that bounce lighting is again starting to hit some of these objects. They're going to recess, so they're not going to catch quite as much of the lighting. We've got a little bit of an overhang here, and we still need to give it some kind of form so that we can see it. And then in contrast, right underneath there, I want this to be a little bit brighter. Okay. So this part, I'm going to catch a lot of light just so that we can have a little bit of separation. That's looking good. A little bit brighter there just to be able to highlight the form that I'm trying to create just a little bit more. And we can do some quick little sketchy things here. Once I turn off my rendering, or sorry, my outline, we'll be able to see why those come into play. Do the same thing on the other side. So first I want to start off with a little bit of a highlight. I'm going to draw those lines in first. And then I'm pushing my shadows and my light back. Same thing. We don't have as much light that's going to hit right over here. We can do a little bit of it as if there's some wrinkles. I like that. And then we've got the base of the jacket. That's moving a little bit further back, but let's give it a little bit of shape and a little bit of form. Same thing for this guy. Let's give the bottom the color this time. A little bit of a wrinkle here, and let's pretend that it's got some push out to it. Same thing goes with this right in here. That's all working pretty darn good. And then we'll pretend that there's a good bit of bounce light that's going right along the edge of this thing. There we go. All right, so that's a pretty cool little colored shape that we're creating there. Let me turn off the, that looks good. All right, so let's zoom back. And that is sort of my first pass on this character's jacket. There's still quite a bit more room just to be able to keep working it just a little bit more now that we've learned some more things from where I started off with in these jackets. Let's go in and let's really brighten up that arm there. Give it some highlights where the light's going to catch. As that arm's a little bit further back. One more here. Wrinkle, wrinkle. All right, that's looking pretty good to me. We can refine this shape just a little bit more around this side. Righty, so just that quick, we've got the arm pushing back, we've got a jacket, and the form of the jacket is starting to come through in a really, really nice way. Things are still really sketchy here, but I'm in a good position now to be able to do a second pass on this jacket and add even more extreme highlights and to be able to brighten it up further. And we've come a long ways from just having that initial sketch. We're really starting to get the overall shapes that I'm looking for here. I'm not leaving too much really around the character's neck. That's not the most important thing in the world to me. I haven't done the stripes on the character. Maybe at the very end here, I'll show you how I would lay those in. But yeah, it's 7:30 right now for me. So I think we'll have enough time this evening for me to go in and really kind of polish up this jacket a little bit more. Okay, so that's my initial highlight pass. When we look at the character's pants over here, those pants are made from a different material. So they are not the same stuff that the jacket is made from. The jacket is made from a nylon. It's got a lot more reflection to it, whereas the jeans are quite a bit darker. So we don't want those to collect as much light, and we can do something different with them. So this is just going to be a quick experiment. I'm going to do it on a separate layer. And this is the best part about working in Photoshop, right? Just to have some differentiation between the top and the bottom of the character so that it's not just one equal kind of tone, kind of like what's going on with the dinosaurs back there. We want to have a little bit of change to it. So we've got this character's jeans that are still catching some highlights. And yeah, they've got a lot less saturation to them. So I think that could be a good path forward if we make these pants quite a bit more gray, whereas the top of it has a little bit more saturation and color to it. Could be the solution that we're looking for. So I'm going to go in. Yeah, there it goes. We got this highlight that's coming through here. That's a really, really nice line that we're creating. Got a nice sharp line that's happening. And then we want just a little bit of bounce lighting. We said that this is going to be in mostly shadow. Lighting going on the inside of the character's legs. About my shadow forms, that leg is quite a bit further back. Let's again add some of that really sharp rim lighting to the character. There we go. It's looking good to me. And we've got a couple more things that we can do. We've still got the top of the character's thigh. So remember how in the previous video I talked a lot about finding the nubbies, right? the big round bulbous shapes on the characters. Well, that's what I'm doing with the underlying sketch on this character also. I'm thinking about where that light is going to hit the most on this thing. So even though I might have to go back and modify this a little bit more, the crotch region, give him a sweet belt, but I don't think he needs it. And I'm going to turn my opacity down to like 7%, really low, 14%. And just push that one back just a little bit further so we're not getting to those true blacks and giving just a little bit more tone. I think that this is going to get crunched when if I upload it to the internet, they're going to crunch the colors on it. It's one of those reasons why it's still nice to have nice high quality prints of your stuff. When we upload things to social media, they crunch the colors quite a bit. You don't get the same richness as you do when you're working on one of these monitors. All right, so let's turn this guy off and turn our sketch off and look at those pans. So first thing, I want to zoom back. And yeah, we've definitely got some coloration to it, although it does not look all that different from what's going on with the top section of the characters. So I wanted to crush my colors a little bit. Image adjustments, hue, saturation. That's my favorite one to work with. There are other ways to be able to get to this thing, but it's under image adjustments, hue, saturation. And I'm gonna turn down the saturation on those pants a lot. So that's basically black and white now. And yeah, it looks like a different material. I'm not sure if the material itself looks all that much better. It still kind of looks like it's painted the same way. They sort of look like felt pants right now. But when I get to the boots next, I think that should help to differentiate and give it some more interest, right? So we want the character, when we're looking at the reference image over here on the top right-hand side, he's got these nice, really bright, shiny boots on that otherwise are completely black. And I want to really kind of mess with those highlights. So again, moving it into the teal, that's the brightest highlight that we're getting right now. There is some pure white going on here. That's a little bit brighter. I think that is one little chip of almost pure white, but that will give us a lot to be able to work with. And let's go in here. If I use the dodge tool, it's going to get even brighter. So for now, let's go in and let's start highlighting those boots and giving them some interest. And that is sort of my first initial pass on the character's jacket and his pants. I haven't used the smudge tool yet. I'm still keeping this really rough. When I go back and do my second pass and then really start to refine this jacket further, that's when I'll start to introduce the smudge tool into this character, or into this rendering. Still got the face to do. I haven't forgotten about it. Here, 1 second. All right, boots. All right, so I do not really have a whole lot of information planned out on these characters' boots, which happens a lot, but it is important to think through the shoes of the character. Like I made them a little bit thicker in my final rendering. It's okay. So I've got the pants on their own layer for highlights. Got the upper jacket on its own layer. And now let's just, for the sake of patterning, let's give the boots their own pattern and highlight layer. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to start off, oh, excuse me, I feel like I'm about to sneeze, at 95%. And let's go in and let's make some choices. All right. Got the back of the boots. They're going to have a nice bright line on them. Now I can always darken this later on, but I just want to go through, and this is a great example, you guys, of going through and thinking about the mark making that I'm doing these characters. There's my first highlight on this guy. Second highlight, the back of the boot is going to get some rendering. Because the light's coming right from behind him. Let's pull that light around. A little bit of light right here on the edge as well. Catching it. Bit of rim light around the ankle over here. Not going to be shy against it. And rim light. So I'm really focusing on the shape making that I'm creating right now. This goes back to that line art project. You guys remember that one, right? Talked all about the shape of the lines that we're creating. And I think that is enough here for a boot highlight. Let's give it just a little bit more highlight right around this edge back here. And that's pretty good. So let's go in and let's turn this down to 48%. And I don't want to softly render these in the same way that I did the pants, but I do still want to give some indication. And to describe this as sort of a less bright material than the other highlights that are going on. And then this to drop away. So just to show that there's a little bit of shadow that's going on with this thing. Light is moving all the way around that because it's ambient. There we go. And I don't want to over render this. I want to leave a lot of it just for soft and sketchy. Oh gosh, when I say soft and sketchy, I feel like you guys interpret that in like the worst way possible. I don't want to not render it. Still needs to be rendered, but I don't want to overdo it and make it look like felt, like what was going on up above. I hope that makes sense. Yep. So let's turn off the highlight and let's look at these boots. So when we zoom out now, yeah, we've got a nice dark boot there that's got really bright highlights on it. It is one of the most saturated things on my screen right now. So I may want to go in and image hue saturation adjustments and go down on the saturation. It's a hard call because I think I can go back with that second pass and add some brighter highlights to it and really make them stand out. Let me go in here and I'm going to use my burn tool on these boots now. And this guy, I love him. He's great, but we're going to darken him up quite a bit as far as the highlight goes. Same thing for this one. It's a little bit too much, pushing and pulling some of this stuff back. This one is getting just a little bit further away. Down sliding, it's too close to the ground. And yeah, that's working pretty good on the character's boots. Da, da, da. So if you guys haven't guessed by now, that's my first pass on the character's boots. I am ready to go in and start doing the character's face at this point. And I am going to handle the face in the exact same way that I have everything else with this rendering. And we're going to build into it slowly. All right. So for the character's face, let's go in here and I'm going to start with my darkest darks. So that is the darkest dark on this character. Maybe that's a little bit more black. I want it to be in the brown region. We're going to give it a little bit more saturation, a little bit more brightness. I don't think I'm quite going to go as dark as they have. And let's give our faceless, hairless mannequin some hair right now. Let's go ahead and make some choices about that. So I've got the hairline already drawn in. There's the hair. Facial hair. Should we give this guy any type of facial hair? We can give him a little bit of a nape on the hair right there. Edge. Does he need, little tassels sticking down? I don't know. I think he's going to look like a Rick from The Walking Dead if we do that. I want to leave this fella fairly clean cut. A little bit of it going on the back of the head. That's going to help a lot. I do like the idea of giving him a 5 o'clock shadow. I think that looks pretty sweet with that line that's going on with the character, but we're going to work our way towards any facial hair here in just a moment. So that's my first pass on the dark with the character, is just figuring out the hairline. Oh, I guess we've got the eyebrows to do as well, since those are going to end up being good and dark. And let's make this guy look really ticked off. So for eyebrows, man, it's a dude. We don't want to make it look like he goes and gets tweezed. So let's make him a little bit rougher. He's looking real ticked off. That one's a little bit too thick. That's looking good. Any other super dark spots on this character, right? What are the other darkest moments? We've got the inside of the ear, the underside of the nose, but I want to build into the nose before I get too dark. And then we've got right around the eyes, but that's something that I want to build up into secondly. For now, I can do the inside of the ear, just as sort of a resting point. And then this little donger right there. All right, so those two are going to help a lot. We've also got the edge of the mouth, which is going to be super dark. And then we got a little bit more of the edge of the mouth right here. And that's going to start to inform a lot on this character. I'm going to create a new layer and let's zoom it out now. And I want to start working loosely on this guy. I love all the different values and shades, and I want to be able to help you guys get to this within your own characters. Right now, I'm seeing a lot of people, when you're just starting off doing faces, you go straight to the fuzzy brush And you're like, okay, so here's where the shadow is going to be on my character. And then he's got some shadow under here, and then some lines and lines. And we're going to start, working the nose in on the guy. And, that's going to work. And that's as far as you get with the rendering on the characters. Maybe like drop it in a highlight, but there's a lot more that we can do if we start painting the shapes on the characters. So let's go back to that MB Line Art Legendary brush. And we're going to take it a little bit slower and be a little bit more precise. I'm going to turn my smoothing on still, even though I'm working tight. And let's drop that down to 33%. So I've got 33% to me means I have 3 different strokes to be able to build up the form and the lighting on the character. Yeah, we've got the nose, but let's again work from the darkest points on the character moving forward. Okay, so that's a good line for me. I don't need that one. Let's go in, make it a little bit darker as we move even further up into this character. Got a nice dark line that's going on. I think I'm working on a new layer now. Yeah, from the other darks that I've established. And then we've got the under the jaw. This is really fun. So I'm not lifting my brush up. I'm just doing one pass here and rendering this shape. Other things that are not going to get much light on this first pass are going to be right around the character's neck, right? So back here and underneath, we're going to get a darker line moving through there. Let's just go ahead and establish some stuff. Look at that, starting to look like an Illustrator drawing of a face already. So right here, I'm going to turn this down even further. There it goes. Got his neck, other line muscles. So this is working at 16%, and I'm just lightly starting to build up some of these forms. So since he's going into the shadow, again, I've got those 3 passes on the character's neck. That's going to be where one of our deepest moments within this guy lives at. And then as we get up here, we've got another really deep moment that's going on. A little bit around this that we can start to build into the chin and the jawline. Don't want to go too dark with the jawline. No need for that. And leave some room for some highlights to exist here. But one good measuring tool that I like to use on characters' necks is right here, right? So there is another muscle that goes from behind the ear and then runs directly down the edge of your jaw. And this is always a really good one to be able to render out. They accentuate it within comic book renderings a lot. They love to draw that muscle right there. Use my smudge brush real quick, just because on these faces, not everything needs to be a super sharp line. Some of this stuff is more rounded. I want to get rid of that line right there. It doesn't need to be there. Make this just a little bit softer. It pulls down. Should be able to get quite a bit out of this first pass. Okay, so next up, let's go in and let's establish underneath the nose. So the nose for the character, the first spot that I like to start is right underneath, right? We've got our nostrils. That's my first pass. I'm still working at 30%. We've got the cleft of the nose, or underneath between the lips and the at the top of the lips and underneath the nose. And then we've got the upper lip. So the upper lip, man, this is a fun one. We don't want to make him look like he's wearing lipstick. But as things get closer to the sides of the cheeks on the character, the rendering is going to get darker. So we can do it darker here and then darker right around the edges. And that should help to establish our lip line. And then right underneath the lips, we've got a little bit of a divot as we start to push out into the chin. This is always a tricky one for me to be able to establish correctly. All right, so that's getting a little bit too dark there. The chin is going to catch a lot of light on the character. Next one that we're interested in is right underneath here. So this is a great plane to build in on your characters. And that's sort of what I'm working with. Let me turn this up real quick so you guys can see where I'm going. I'm going to do it on a new layer. I'm thinking in terms of planes. So I've got this section of the character. This is going to be good and bright. I've got another plane that's going on over here. Now all of a sudden we've got a pretty good nose that's working within the character. We've got the eyeballs. Outside of the eyeballs, we've got a plane that's going to go in here, and then it starts to get brighter right in this region. Right here, we've got a rounded shape. So if I'm doing the topology of it, it looks kind of like that. And then we've got a sharp line, and then we've got another big plane that's going straight across on the character right here. This whole little section sticks out. This is dark right under here. This is a line. And so the way this works is sort of out like this. Now on the chin, we've got a nice round chin that's going on. Eye planes, all of this is dipping further back through there, and that'll start to give me sort of a working pipeline. Within this, we've got it's softening as it comes out of here, and then we've got another big plane that exists right over here as well. So these are the kind of underlying planes. Let me do that again with a little bit less topology so you guys can see what I'm doing. All right, so we got our nose, right? We got a nice bright thing that I know I'm going to put on the edge. We got the edge of the nostril, which is showing up. I've got a bridge of the nose that's going backwards. If you guys have ever opened up any old school, art books when you were in elementary school or anything like that, they're always showing off characters drawn like this. And there's a good reason for it. We're thinking about the planes and thinking about the rendering. I'm not sure why. Some of you guys have been doing stylized characters for so long that you haven't really taken this into consideration within your own process. But as moving towards professional artists, I think it is absolutely the time for you to start doing that. Start thinking of them these terms. All right, there we go. So that is a pretty good secondary drawing of the planes within the character's face. It's really important for me to get the cheekbones going on, and then there's a cool transition that I think can mess up a lot of people right within this region. That gave me trouble for a number of years, as well as figuring out how to be able to render underneath the eyes and get that kind of sunkenness to where it's moving out successfully and looking as strong as it possibly can. That's what we're about to move into right now. So let's start establishing it. I'm going to build it up slowly. So I've got my opacities up to 100%. Let's turn that down to 33 again. And yeah, I could go in and I could circle the character's eyes. But if I do that, I'd be missing some cool opportunities here. So right underneath the character's eyes can be shaded. They don't have to be white every single time. And we're going to move out from there. Same thing goes. Shaded and moving out. Got another dimple that's going to go here. Let's go even lighter. Character's nose. And then got a nice little deep section right around here that we want to start to build out. So I'm going to get away from this color that I've been using now. And the highlights on the ears. Those ears, like he was a wrestler for quite some time. And then a little bit of this. We're going to wrap that with the highlights. Okay, so that is a pretty good start on our first pass for this rendering on the character. From here, I've got an option. I can go in and I can start in to paint some of my highlights. I think that's probably a good idea for us to be able to really see these planes real fast. I want to go in and do the character's hands. I've seen some folks stress out and mess up on the character's hands a little bit. So you can see how much we were able to accomplish with just that first shallow pass on the character. I've still got room to be able to go in and blend this stuff, but let's go in and start establishing some of the brighter spaces. And there's a lot of other hues that are going to happen on this character too while I'm working through them. But that's just one color set to 33% and being logical about the way that I'm working through it. Dark to the lighter areas on him. Okay. Hands. All right. So underneath this, yeah, that's it. Why am I not seeing the character's hands being drawn? Okay. Very- I don't know. I might be lagging. Let me save. That's a great idea. Okay, we're saved. That. And somehow I locked my layer. That's what I did. Must hit L on the keyboard. So I'm up to the 54%. That'll work for me. For this character's hand, right? He is wrapping. Let's go a little bit softer. 33% is sort of the magic number with a lot of this stuff. Each time you see me do this, I'm going to start working from my darkest regions first, where the light is not hitting, towards my highlights. Starting to get a little bit of highlight on the edge of the fingers there as it bounces up off the character. Let's go even lower. All right. And here we go. And let's curl that thumb around up on top. He's holding it. And we got the platform for where the fingers are going to go. That's going to be nice and dark. All right. So I'm really, oops, fudging these fingers at the beginning. I think I could have planned this out a little bit better with my sketch. Of course, I'm getting warmed up at this stage. That'll give us a pretty good shape for the character's hands. All right, that'll work for now. Got some other highlights and things that we're going to create in this next pass. All right, he's looking good. We're still going to do that 5 o'clock shadow on the character, but that is my first pass. Okay. See how well just getting those little dark points in the right areas are working. Not going in too dark underneath the nose yet on the character. I can always sort of push and pull these things, but let's go in and let's start creating some of those highlight passes on him now. Okay. So the brightest point on this character, it's either this, check, or I think it's going to be that. They are perfectly even. In this case, I like it having a little bit more tone to it. And that's at 22%. Let's turn it up to 100 just to see how bright that highlight really is. That'll work for me. Cool. That'll give me plenty of space to be able to build up into these highlights. I'm on a new layer. And let's turn that opacity back down to around the 30s. Okay. So for working towards the highlights, I want to start back down with my hand. Since those have got nice planar regions on them, starting real loose with each one of these. I totally just lost the thumb because it's the exact color, or that index finger because it's the exact color as the ground behind him. So likely I need to do some type of bounce lighting just to be able to keep that color within my shot. Otherwise, I'm going to lose this part of the hand. So continue painting through it. All right, next up, let's get the face. So I'm going to start over here on this side of the character's nose. We got a little bit of a highlight that's going to go on underneath the nose. We know that we got our chin. I'm just sort of working from this part down. Going to catch a lot of our highlight. Got the underside of the character's lip. It's going to get a lot of the highlight. And now I'm working across. The nose itself is going to end up being one of the brightest regions on this character. A little bit of a highlight on that other nostril. There it is. All right, so we know that this is going to catch a lot of the light within this section. Back over at our reference, we've got a little bit of a highlight going on up underneath the character's eyes. So let's go ahead and include that. It feels weird. It's always felt weird for me to include that in there, but it's got to happen. So there we go. And then we've got this plane right around the edge of the character's mouth. It's going to get a highlight as well. And then this plane right here, remember we said that is sticking out a little bit. And that's going to look pretty good. So we've got another little dimple that we can do on the character's Adam's apple, another little highlight that I can start to perform here on the character's neck, and it can get a little bit brighter within this region, but not too bright. And I don't really want to touch anything within that area. Sorry, this big plane right here. So that's all working pretty well for me. And we are in a good position now to be able to go back and do our quick smudge pass. And it's just to be able to smooth these up. Again, this is where having that stuff on different layers really comes in handy. It starts to happen. It's starting to take shape. And while I'm doing the smudge pass, I'm leaving some things rough. Just determining where these shapes are going to start and stop at. Now I'm going to go back underneath my rougher layer, or sorry, my shadow layer, and where the chin is at, I want to soften that. This transition here, I can soften it. I can probably make it a little bit bigger. That's all working pretty good for me. And I'm in a pretty good spot now, softening stuff going around the character's nose. It's all working really well. He looks good and perturbed and ticked off. And now I'm ready for my second pass on the character's face. As we continue to move forward, this time I want to add, some more details, continuing to work into those details. And this is a good checkpoint on my character with just these first two layers in here. So what's going on? His nose and the bridge of his nose feels really, really short right now. So I probably likely need to move those things down. But I like the track that I'm on with the character's face. There's my highlight pass. I'm going to merge all these guys. And let's make some corrections and really kind of look at this. So if I take this part, there's my character's nose. And I go to Edit, Transform, and Distort. That'll be right in the middle there. There we go. I'm pushing it over just a little bit. And now we need to push it back. Edit, Transform, and I'm going to warp it. Down just a little bit. This forward just a little bit here. Okay. There you go. Minor rhinoplasty on our character. All right. So go up to 100 just to be able to make that patch happen. And I'm in a pretty good spot now for this thing. Hitting I on the keyboard. Just build paint over it. Be able to go in and start adding some of those other tones and values on the character. See, this is getting just a little bit too bright down here. It's not connecting all that well. And start detailing out the character's eyes. So, yeah, man, now I can start being a little muddy. Getting muddy probably means that we just need to soften it back and away. That looks a little bit weird. 71, 31. Oops. Ooh, All right, so let's stop this video for now. I'm going to take a quick little break and then go back in and we'll do a second pass on the character's face. But from this, we have got a really, really good base to be able to continue building this character forward with. We've got the hands that are starting to be established. We've got the planes that are starting to show up and exist within the character space. And now it's a matter of darkening some of these things up further, getting those eyes in there, and then building in some other hues and values into the character's face as well. I think that's so important so that we're not just stuck with just the same boring old two-color render. I want to show you guys how to be able to push some more tones and hues into the character's face to get those rosy looking cheeks and to be able to soften these things up. So next video, polish on the character's face.